The history of human thought recalls the swinging of a pendulum, which takes centuries to swing. After a moment of slumber comes a moment of awakening. But the inveterate enemies of thought, the government, the lawgiver, and the priest, soon recover from their defeat, and by degrees they remodel their code of laws to adapt them to their new needs. Then, profiting by the servility of thought which they themselves have so effectually cultivated, profiting too by the momentary disorganization of society, taking advantage of the laziness of some, the greed of others, and the best hopes of many, they softly creep back to their work. Eventually, the light of the human spirit will break through the debris of oppression. And when the old superstitions are thrown off, the question of morality will arise. This uncertainty of the moral standard actually advances the philosophy of morality because of the discussion involved. Ideas cannot evolve when the oppressor allows only one viewpoint to be indoctrinated rather than discussed.
The traditions of all dead generations weigh like a nightmare on the brain of the living. Why should we follow the hypocritical morality of the past? Why should any morality be obligatory?
Buddhists, Christian, and Muslim theologians have seen that man, be he savage or civilized, always knows if he is acting well or ill, especially always knows if he is acting ill. Religion has attributed these instincts to divine inspiration, while metaphysical philosophers have told us of a conscience, of a mystic imperative, and after all, have changed nothing but the phrase.
Whole books might be written to show how identical are the conceptions of good and evil amongst men and other animals. All seem to have the same idea of good and evil, and if you reflect on what lies at the bottom of this idea, you will see that what is considered good among ants, marmots, Christian and atheist moralists is that which is useful for the preservation of the race, not for the individual, but fair and good for the whole race.
The idea of good and evil, thus, has nothing to do with religion or a mystic conscience. Our explanation may not be the true one, or at best incomplete, but the fact, with its consequences to humanity, will still remain. We may not be able to fully explain the origin of the planets revolving around the sun, but the planets revolve nonetheless, and one of them carries us with it through space.
If man distinguishes between good and evil, say theologians, it is God who has inspired him. Useful or hurtful is not for him to inquire. But we will not stop at this explanation, fruit of ignorance and terrors of the savage.
Neither let us pause at the utilitarian explanation. They will have it that man acts morally from self-interest, and they forget his feelings of solidarity. There is some truth in this, but let us go further. In all animal societies, solidarity is a natural law of far greater importance than that struggle for existence. We can prove, with a wealth of examples, how in the animal and human worlds the law of mutual aid is the law of progress. And are not the earliest aggregations of cellules themselves an instance of association in the struggle? It would be easier for man to accustom himself to walk on all fours than to get rid of the moral sentiment. The moral sense is a natural faculty in us, like the sense of smell or touch. By flinging overboard law, religion, and authority, mankind can regain possession of the moral principle, which has been taken from them, regain it that they may criticize it, and purge it from the adulterations wherewith priest, judge, and ruler have poisoned it, and are poisoning it yet. By proclaiming ourselves anarchists, we proclaim beforehand that we disavow any way of treating others in which we should not like them to treat us.
But then, what right have you to dispossess the exploiter? What right not to kill a tyrant, but a mere viper?
Do you want to know if I shall feel conscious of having acted well in this? Yes, certainly, because any man with a heart asks beforehand that he may be slain if ever he becomes venomous, that a dagger may be plunged into his heart if he ever should take the place of a dethroned tyrant. Perovskaya and her comrades killed the Russian Tsar, and all mankind, despite the repugnance of spilling blood, despite the sympathy for the one who had allowed the serfs to be liberated, recognized their right to do as they did. Why? Not because the act was generally considered useful, but because it was felt that not for all the gold in the world would Perovskaya and her comrades have consented to become tyrants themselves. Even those who know nothing of drama are certain that it was no youthful bravado, no palace conspiracy, no attempt to gain power. It was hatred of tyranny, even to the scorn of self, even to death. Mankind has never refused the right to use force on those who have conquered that right, be it exercised on the barricades or in the shadow of a crossway. All we can do is give advice, and again, while giving it, add, this advice will be valueless to you if your own experience and observation do not lead you to believe that it is worth following. We only ask one thing: to eliminate all that impedes the free development of love and hate. For without one, the other is impossible. Thus far, our analysis has only set forth the simple principles of equality. We have revolted and invited others to revolt against those who, not themselves wishing to be deceived, exploited, prostituted, or ill-used, yet behave thus to others. Lying and brutality are repulsive not because they are disapproved by codes of morality, but because such conduct revolts the sense of equality in everyone to whom equality is not an empty word. And above all, does it revolt him who is a true anarchist in his way of thinking and acting. We recognize the full and complete liberty of the individual. We wish to impose nothing on him. Fourier stated in opposition to religious morality,
"Leave men absolutely free. Do not mutilate them, as religions have done enough and to spare. Do not even fear their passions. In a free society, these are not dangerous.
Provided that you do not allow others to enslave you. Provided that to the violent and antisocial passions of this or that person you oppose your equally vigorous social passions, you have nothing to fear from liberty."
And yet, if societies practiced merely the equity of traders, each person taking care all day long not to give others anything more than he was receiving from them, society would die of it. If it is to be maintained, something grander, more lovely, more vigorous than mere equity must perpetually find a place in life.
Fertility of mind, of feeling, of goodwill takes all possible forms. It is in the passionate seeker after truth, who renounces all other pleasures, to throw his energy into the search for what he believes true and right, contrary to the affirmations of the ignoramuses around him. It is in the ardent revolutionary, to whom the joys of art, science, even family life seem bitter, so long as they cannot be shared by all. Such men and women as these make true morality, the only morality worthy of the name. All the rest is merely equity in relations. That which mankind admires in a truly moral man is his energy, the exuberance of life, which urges him to give his intelligence, his feeling, his action, asking nothing in return. The morality we propose will issue no commands.
It will refuse, once and for all, to model individuals according to an abstract idea, as it will refuse to mutilate them by religion, law, or government. Take heed that if you lie, intrigue, cheat, you thereby demean yourself. Confess your own weaknesses beforehand. Do this if it pleases you. But know that humanity will regard you as petty, contemptible, and feeble, and will treat you as such.
To struggle is to live. And the fiercer the struggle, the intenser the life. Then you will have lived. And a few hours of such a life are worth years spent vegetating. Power to act is duty to act. And the condition of the maintenance of life is its expansion.
This is all the science of morality can tell you. Yours is the choice.